Austen Schwend is a candidate for the 37th House of Delegates, but he's got to get through the primary first, which will happen in the Republican primary on the 17th and Tuesday. Early voting ends this Friday. He joins us today from his Botetourt County home, and we're going to talk about some of the issues that he's raised. He's got a great website. He's a serious man, a businessman. And this is funny for those of you that are crazy about politics or not. Part of reading his website, he indicates that he's been a mechanic, a cook, a bus driver, and even a waiter. And welcome, Austen. It's good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We've noticed that you've done a number of jobs, and yet you're still interested in having your voice heard and making a career in Richmond. So give us a little bit of background. Why did you want to become the delegate from the 37th district?
Basically, it feels like a lot of liberties keep slipping away from us, and I want to try to do my best to reclaim them for me and my kids and eventually their kids. So that's been the genesis of it all. The only correction I'd say is I'm not interested in a career in Richmond. Like if I end up being somebody like I go there just temporarily to break things up a little bit, break the good old boys club up a little bit, and then hand the reins off to somebody else, I would much rather do that. In fact, in this race, I was hoping somebody else would run because I wanted the incumbent to be challenged, but ultimately they didn't, so I had to.
Isn't this a pretty long road? I mean, you've got a delegate a current delegate who's had a substantial career in politics, and in terms of Alleghany County, at least, has had some substantial success helping with some big financial challenges. I mean, isn't that a really tough road to oppose just starting out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going against an incumbent is difficult anyway, but when we started, he had about $500,000 in the bank to use on his campaign. And in the past, I think 2 months, he's gotten another $200,000 from special interests and such. So he's able to blast his message out there and in a way recreate himself. That makes it very, very difficult for us because it's definitely not a level playing field. And there's a lot of other challenges too. Part of them is just simple relationships where when I reach out to county leaders and city leaders and various people, I usually get stonewalled in favor of the incumbent. So there's those types of issues as well. And he has spent a lot of money, and that's one of those things he brags about a lot, but that's one of the reasons that I wanted to challenge him, because I think Republicans should save a little bit of money, not just spend, and then vote for tax increases.
Well, I must admit, I didn't purposely stonewall you, but I stonewalled you. Somebody
you were busy.
In the weekend said, "What's the matter with you? How come you can't talk to this guy?" And I said, "I am too busy." No, I'll fix it. And so, well, our apologies. I realize we're near the end of the campaign. And on your website, you've got a number of points. And before the interview, I said, let's talk about a couple of the things that you brought. And one of them, I don't think I've ever heard a candidate say, I'm not so sure that all laws shouldn't expire after 20 years. I mean, that's very commonsensical because some stuff just hangs around. It's not relevant. It's not pertinent to the current, climate. So did you just dream that one up, or have you been thinking about the subject for a long time?
I wrote that on a napkin in a meeting one time when I was just thinking, I wonder what would I do to try to fix this? And one of the problems we have here in Virginia is that they vote on something like 1,500 bills a year. And
that's amazing. Yeah.
If you believe in representative government, there's no way for us to really hold them accountable when they're voting on that many laws. And then on top of that, you imagine, how does the average citizen obey the law when you can't keep up with the laws that get passed? And then beyond that, how does law enforcement know what the law is if, it's 1,500 of them that get voted on. I think Governor Youngkin had signed 777 laws, bills into law like 2 months ago or something like that.
Wow. In our defense, we publish all the changes in the law, i.e. the DMV changes every July, and that's about it. I mean, it is very difficult to. And one of the things that you mentioned on your website was you made this statement: taxation has gotten out of control, and we probably would agree with that. But how do you find a way to fund all the what appears to be ever and ever increasing public demand for this and that from government? How do you deal with that?
Keep in mind these ideas are linked. So if you have every law expire after 20 years, you have the opportunity, and this is just something I want to talk about. It's not something I'm guaranteed to say, all right, let's do it. I want to have conversations about it. But one of the things that happens, for example, let's talk about something highly controversial like Social Security. Social Security passed in the 30s, and the idea was that your money would go into Social Security and you'd get it back. 2 years later, in the Supreme Court, the government was arguing, no, it's not your money. This is simply a tax, and it's our money to do whatever the heck we want with it. So then in that tiny window, you have the government lying to you like they have so many times. And if there's no mechanism to let the people vote on that again, so to speak, then eventually it becomes just the law of the land, and it's another wasteful thing that we have. And it's a very difficult issue. And you could do the same for the IRS. The creation of the IRS goes back to the Civil War in 1862, supposedly. So should Abraham Lincoln in wartime be able to create an IRS essentially that we just have to deal with forever? Or what kind of solutions do we actually have? And moreover, what voice do the voters have? And to me, it seems like we don't have much at all.
Well, with respect to voting control and just the power that we've seen, if you look at a map of Virginia and you put red where the conservative part of Virginia is in blue, there's a few spots of blue in Western Virginia, Lexington, Roanoke, probably a portion of Montgomery County. And then all the rest is, in the east. And you made a point on your website that you thought that this increasing urban control is, in your view, a serious problem.
Yeah. I mean, our entire legislature was set up to try to prevent that. That was the whole reason we had the House of Representatives and the Senate. On the state level, obviously, House of Delegates and the Senate. And it seems to me that there's a lot of things that you might not even think about that we get controlled by the cities, essentially.
Well, road funding is definitely, that's one thing that is really difficult for the delegates and senators on this side, because there's a never-ending demand for that money. Right.
And just like we always hear the governors competing they just swear they're going to fix Northern Virginia traffic. That's something we hear in the state races every single time.
Well, another popular topic that you mentioned in your website is your concern about the possible erosion of gun rights. What's your view on that?
I am extremely pro-Second Amendment. I was part of the Second Amendment sanctuary movement back when that happened a few years ago under Governor Northam. I want to go a little further with that and make sure we reaffirm those are our rights. And just because they have 51 votes in the House of Delegates doesn't mean they get to strip us of those. At the same time, we spoke earlier about colleges. I was at Virginia Tech when the shooting happened there. And 14 months before that shooting, I was trying to convince Virginia Tech that a shooting was possible and that we needed to have solutions for it. And the people in charge of security laughed at me for thinking it was even possible. Mm-hmm. So I have quite a story surrounding Virginia Tech that maybe can, even if Democrats hold the majority, maybe can stifle some of the gun grabs that they want to try to do.
Do you believe that the abortion question is something that Western Virginians are very concerned about? I mean, how big of a deal is this with respect to representing the 37th district? Is there any practical effect that a delegate can have on that?
Just a simple vote, most likely, but also one of the things I want to focus on, if elected, is to try to change the culture a little bit and have these kind of difficult conversations. And the current incumbent has basically made a concession on abortion. In the Cardinal News voter guide, for example, he had one that said he supports it for quote unquote quote health of the mother and other situations. And that's not consistent with understanding where life begins. And if you understand where life begins, that's a very, very difficult question, right? I mean,
yeah, sure.
And obviously the other side will define, because the legal definitions is what matter. They will define health of the mother to include mental health of the mother. That's an argument that they try to make. So if you believe that this is actually a life and you can kill it for the mental health of the mother, that's not something I can stand behind. And that's just one example.